The trip started off with a long overnight drive from the state of Michigan to Badlands National Park, where we spent the entire day enjoying the hikes, overlooks, and scenery, capping it off with an overnight stay in Rapid City, South Dakota. The very next morning was spent hiking Bear Lodge, or Devil's Tower National Monument. Then it was back in the car for a long drive to Bozeman, Montana, where we spent the night. This was a great stop for us with a lot going on there right in the town. Bozeman is a college town home to Montana State University, which is what the M on that hill there represents. What a beautiful spot to wake up and enjoy a sunrise. We were packed up and headed out early in the morning, excited to be driving across the beautiful western Montana, from the town of Bozeman to our eventual overnight destination of the Bannack State Park. Our objective for today on the trip was to just get to Bannack and thoroughly be able to explore everything there, and we had all day to do it. So we were planning on really taking our time and taking in all the scenery that surrounded us, and also we were going to stop in some other iconic Montana ghost towns along the way. A portion of our drive today was along the immensely beautiful Madison River, which is dotted with campgrounds and boat launches that we just couldn't help ourselves but pull over and soak up the sights and even get some different views with the drone for a minute. Along the way, we continued to spot these white pelicans, which I suppose should come as no surprise as this is their natural habitat. But if you're not used to seeing these birds away from ocean beaches, I guess it can catch you off guard when you see these beautiful animals out in a mountain river. This was a highlight of the trip for Chloe, so I'm going to let her tell you a little bit about these wonderful creatures.
Yeah, I love these guys. I was super excited to see them, and one of the things I noticed was that a lot of them still had their lateral horns, which is that bump that you might notice on their beaks. So this is something that both males and females grow during breeding season, and then it just falls off afterwards. Scientists are a little unsure of what exactly it is, but we do know it's directly related to breeding season because it grows and then falls off afterwards. Super amazing birds, super excited to have seen them.
On our way to the first destination, we came to this mountain pass that was apparently used by settlers that were traveling west via the Oregon Trail. We drove down off the mountain pass to our first ghost town of the day, Virginia City, Montana. Now, it's not a true ghost town, as you can probably tell, but it's still a great way for our beginning ghost town experience here, and it was an awesome stop to start learning the history of the place, which we did almost immediately as we pulled into town and found a parking spot and hopped on the big red fire truck for a tour of the town.
Because they are fully hilarious, and they are absolutely positively not politically correct.
This historic fire engine can be found right on the main street, and it runs tours all day. The guide really does a great job sharing the history of Virginia City. What a great way for us to get our first experience in the town.
They came from Houston Air Force Base up in Great Falls. When the Bovies moved here in the 40s from Great Falls to start to restore Virginia City and Nevada City, they brought them with them. Those were snappers to live in. It was a little street community all to itself. People actually lived in there, cooked in the 90s. They were in such bad disrepair, they tore them down a couple of years ago. But if it had not been for Charlie and Sue Bovey and the millions of dollars they poured into this town, there'd probably be much to see. So our hats are always off to Charlie and Sue for keeping the town alive and preserving all the history and the day. The park here with the first 5 graves. I'll head the others here in just a minute. There's the 5 guys who were all hung on the same day. None of these guys is famous. The guy there in the middle, Boone Hell, he's the guy that set a raid for Jefferson Davis. A side note on him, he was convicted cannibal in Canada. The guy on the end down there, George Lane, his nickname is Clifford George. Had a shoe repair business down on Main Street. His lot with this group was to watch the stage station, see where the next shipment of gold was going out. Had a sheriff at the time by the name of Henry Plummer. Henry came to us courtesy of California. where he'd done time in San Quentin prison for murder. He was out on parole. A well-spoken, well-dressed individual came to Montana Territory looking for a job. They needed a sheriff in Bannack, and they hired him. And he immediately started to put together this gang of thieves. Henry Plummer and 2 of his deputies were hung from their own gallows in Bannack, and they're still buried there. Well, the other wall of the window and door, that's why the door is so short. And I'm sure the individuals that built that cabin would much rather been out digging for gold to build the cabin. But when wintertime came, it's probably a great asset, because I'm sure there's a lot of people paying a lot of money to stay in that cabin. Montana Heritage Commissioners put a foundation around underneath it, shored it up, straightened it up, rechecked it, fixed it up for viewing. Somebody actually lived in there for until the mid-1950s. The buildings here on the left, the ones up behind on the right, all built prior to 1900. All the better buildings are all up on Idaho Street, up at the church. That's where the merchants built their houses when their wives arrived on scene. Funny how that happens.
Hopping off the fire engine, we are back on foot exploring this historical town that we just had the pleasure of learning all about. Virginia City is not a true ghost town, as mentioned earlier, in that people still do live and work in this town, but the collection of historical buildings and artifacts is unmatched almost anywhere, and it's still just a great experience to see all of the period timepieces. There's a lot of museums you can go around and see all of the preserved things that have been collected here over the years. The museum was just full of history, tons of pictures of the people and the town from its heyday. These cases were full of period clothing that you could check out. Here was some medicine from my home state of Michigan, from a pharmaceutical company that would go on to be bought up by what we know as Pfizer today. Here's a display case full of all kinds of taxidermied animals that you would see in the local area. Moving on from the museum, as you walk down the street, there's many open buildings that you can walk into and look around, and each one is full of period artifacts. Each artifact would be something that you would find in a similar storefront from that time. Here's one looking into what looks like a blacksmith shop or something like that, complete with a horse-drawn buggy. This building here represented the Rocky Mountain Bell Telephone Company. What if she turned around? Hello?
He's looking at her foot.
He sure is. Even the ice cream shop was making their homemade huckleberry ice cream the old-fashioned way here in Virginia City. We just couldn't help but grab a couple cones for ourselves. Moving on a short distance from the ice cream parlor was the very spot where those bandits that we had learned about earlier on the fire engine tour had actually met their end, apparently from this very beam here. What a spooky thought to be eating ice cream too. We had learned just so much history from our tour guide earlier, and by walking around the town, looking at all the artifacts, going to the museums, it was really just an excellent introduction to our first experience with this mid-1800s Montana gold rush culture and the ghost towns it left behind. This valley here was actually the home of the richest gold strike in all of the Rocky Mountains, and Virginia City was the central hub of all of the people coming here. We learned that probably around 10,000 people were in this valley at once, all living along this stream in tents and makeshift shelters and things like that, and this would have been one of the biggest settlements of all of those miners in the area. Heading down the creek, you can still see evidence of all of the dredging, and all the piles of rocks you see here are actually still remnants of that massive gold strike in the middle of the 1800s. We had even learned and actually saw pictures for evidence that during the height of the population, there was not a single tree in this entire valley, as every single one had been cut down by the miners and used for resources of some kind. Absolutely mind-blowing and incredible. Hopping back in the car, we traveled a very short distance down the road to our next ghost town, which was Nevada City. This is more of a collection of historic buildings all kind of brought to this site, and it actually creates a really awesome living museum.
By the 1870s, Vandals had fallen out of favor, and Criterion Hall was converted to a library stable, while Tuitt in Virginia City remained as Blackwood shows. A dance, gambling hall.
So Calamity Jane danced in this hall? Is that what
No,
they're
her
saying?
father gambled away their
Her
life.
father
She was begging,
gambled.
yeah, in the street.
Was she the little one begging in the street?
One of them. There was 10, 8, and 1-year-old.
Huh.
12, 10, and 1. The 12-year-old was Calamity Jane. Yeah.
She's the oldest.
Nevada City was a really neat collection of buildings. I believe it was put together by the same people who really helped preserve Virginia City just down the street. Each of these buildings was again full of interesting displays and tons of time period artifacts that you could look at and explore. The really cool thing about Nevada City is that it was actually a living museum, in that they have actors on site that help portray life in the middle of the 1800s, and they're really fun to just talk to and to help you get an idea of what things may have been like back then.
Then the Shakers started flattening out rooms to give us the shape that we know today. But many of the ladies liked having that small round room for in their going in their house around in and around the furniture. So it is now known as a parlor room. And then next to that is a hearth room for your fireplace hearth. And the fifth one over is a round whisk room. If you were to flatten it out, it would look like a modern day whisk room. And then the vegetable scrubber, which is what I'm working on right now. And then a pot scrubber, which is particularly good for cast iron. And then that kind of angular one is called a hen's wing. It was originally designed for brushing off fabric and clothing. So think of it as an early version of a lint roller. And
Nice.
then the next one is a cake tester. Now that one is not a period pattern. Ladies, when they were going to go bake a cake and wanted to test it for doneness, they would reach over to their kitchen broom, the one they just finished sweeping the floor with. They'd break off a bristle and they'd use that to test the cake. Well, that concept kind of bothers me, so I make mine separate, guaranteed to have never swept a floor.
Nice.
But the idea is still the same. You break one off and you can test your cake. And then the very last one is a cocktail broom. I'm still working on trying to find out what that was used for. It appears that it may have been used for, like, if you were to be doing plaster work, sort of kind of like a texturing. And the one that's hanging low, that's a little bit lower than all the others, that is a riverboat knot, or a sailor's knot. It goes by both names. The riverboatmen would make them, and then when they'd hit port, they would sell them so they could have a little bit of spending money, and those are used for dusting.
Oh, okay.
And so it's the only one that's not made out of broom corn.
I never knew how much I had to learn about brooms before that. There's even a full-service bar here in Nevada City where you can get yourself an ice-cold root beer or even a sarsaparilla. We hopped back in the car, this time heading for our final destination in Bannack. We took our time to really enjoy the wonderful scenery driving through western Montana here, as these mountains were just absolutely beautiful. Looking off into the distance, we noticed a couple of dark clouds starting to move in, and then we even noticed some rain coming down on this marvelous mountain backdrop there, which always raises my anxiety a bit, knowing that we're going to be spending the night in a tent. And the closer we got, it sure enough was confirmed. It was looking like it was going to be a wet afternoon here, but we weren't going to let that slow us down. We were going to pull into Bannack and quickly set up our tent and get the rain fly on, and get that all situated, and then just head straight into the town and explore the buildings in the rain no matter what, because once you're exploring inside, who really cares? We set up camp in a hurry before the rain really started coming down, and then we went right into town straight for the famously haunted Hotel Mead.
Oh my god, you asshole.
I was about to be like, I got that all on film! Here's a bit of our initial exploration of the hotel.
Okay.
There's a doll that has some negative energy around it. I'll show you.
Really?
Yeah.
A doll?
Yeah.
Ooh. But I want to be like, I'm open to exaggerating. What is this?
Oh!
Look at her.
You see the doll?
I don't even necessarily want them to restore it. I think they should just preserve it. Look at these ceilings. How incredible are these ceilings?
How tall up they are?
What?
And how high up they are? So these are all just the individual guest rooms here.
Yeah, big this one.
Whoa, this one's big too.
These are actually bell rooms. I'd stay here.
Nice view.
I wonder if they're like over the stairs.
Like the flooring doesn't stay.
Yeah. Yeah. I could get up there.
Oh yeah.
Didn't in the Ghost Adventures episode, didn't Aaron get like, thrown down these stairs or something like that?
Like
I wouldn't be surprised.
I don't know that.
Yeah, literally.
I know that.
I mean, just because, like, it could be, doesn't have to be bad vibes, you know?
Wow.
In the saloon, there were a bunch of like shootouts.
Ooh.
So there's like a lot of like death in the saloon.
Figure out.
Yeah, let's check it all out, you guys.
I don't know.
not safe to walk down the streets of Bannack and Virginia City after dark, and sometimes in the daylight. Shooting and killing was a normal standard here. Look at this. Both men emptied their pistols at each other inside this saloon.
Jeez. I wonder if there's bullet holes all over the wall.
Look at this. So much shooting and violence occurred daily in this saloon, the barber in the corner wouldn't even miss a stroke.
That's crazy. This is some red. There's the town behind us. The jailhouse there behind some of those buildings. We're walking up this trail towards the gallows. This would have been a tough walk, I think. I imagine, if you were sentenced to die. This would seem like an eternity. What a scary thought. We followed a side trail off of the back of the gallows there, up to the top of this hill, and as the weather and rain sort of subsided around us, we were able to take in some epic views from above the city. I was really glad we took the time to hike up here. The town was just absolutely gorgeous from up here. Just for a little history lesson quick, some facts from the Wikipedia page on Bannack. It was founded in 1862. It was the site of a major gold discovery at that time, and it was actually named after the local tribe that was in the area. At the height of its population, there were around 10,000 people in this town. It even served as the capital of Montana Territory for a short time, until that moved down the road a short ways back to Virginia City. At the top of the hill, there's also the graveyard, which contains many family plots and individual graves as well. Here's a cool grave of William Bell, a Freemason, here in Bannack. The awesome thing about Bannack State Park is that all of these buildings here are open and free for you to explore. As we came down off of the hill there, we were going to start exploring each of these buildings, starting here with the church. We considered ourselves really lucky to be here on this rainy, drizzly afternoon where there were almost no other visitors in the entire park. It was perfect conditions for exploring with our little group.
In the early 20th century, outbreaks of influenza, scarlet fever, diphtheria, and whooping cough all occurred in Bannack. The Bassett House was sometimes used to quarantine residents who contracted a disease to prevent an epidemic from breaking out. Because these diseases were contagious, people stricken were quarantined until they recovered or died. Some people believe that the house is haunted by the children who died here during an outbreak of one of the many contagious diseases. People have reported the sound of crying babies coming from inside the house, causing it to be known as the Crying Baby House.
Spooky.
Let's sit in and listen without.
Yeah.
Here. Let's sit and listen.
Bannack was just such a fun and neat, unique place to walk around and explore, with so many buildings open for anybody to walk through and to check out. If anybody would plan on coming here and seeing this for yourself, I would highly recommend stopping by the visitor center and picking up one of the guidebooks that has a little excerpt on each of the buildings here in town. If you're lucky enough, like we were able to actually borrow their copy as long as you return it when you leave the park. This here's the original jail building where they'd keep prisoners chained up to the floor, I imagine. In this teeny tiny little room. A couple windows. This one in particular has a view right up towards the gallows that we were at earlier. Right there. Crazy. That would have been tough to be stuck in here waiting for your death. That jail cell had most definitely saw its fair share of interesting characters coming through the walls in its day. Bannack had gained quite a reputation during the time as a lawless, Wild West kind of place. The sheriff of Bannack, who we had learned a little bit about in Virginia City earlier, his name was Henry Plummer, and he was secretly leading a gang of ruthless road agents accused of committing over 100 murders. Henry Plummer's gang was mostly hung or banished from Bannack by the time 1864 rolled around by a group of vigilantes known as the Montana Vigilantes of Bannack and Virginia City. One of these men was actually named Nathaniel Pitt Langford, and he would go on to be the very first superintendent of Yellowstone National Park, a place that we were planning on visiting in just the very next day. We continued on our tour, walking down the street, admiring the saloon and the Hotel Mead over there. It's beautiful old buildings. Next up, we are going to explore the old schoolhouse. It's a first floor schoolhouse, second floor Masonic temple. Question of the day. What year did Montana become a territory?
No, 1816. Oh, ew, this is bad. What? The rules for teachers. Yeah.
You will not marry.
You may not let down.
You may not. To keep company with men.
I bet the teachers had like mad sexual tension with every man that came across.
You must wear at least 2 petticoats.
Damn.
Jeez.
You might not dress in bright colors. Can't dye your hair. You have to wear tight nose, dress
Where's the upstairs? Oh, it's outside.
I thought there was something interesting. Not one of these things.
Heading out of the side of the schoolhouse, you can take this old set of stairs up to the second story. First, take time and make sure you enjoy the view off the back here of the beautiful Grasshopper Creek that ran through town, home of the original gold boom to begin with. But as you enter through this door, there's still an active to this day Masonic temple on the second floor where the Freemasons practiced whatever it is that Freemasons do. It's kind of neat. Oh wow.
Oh, is this so?
Yeah. Seems that way. Overall, we really enjoyed our time here in Bannack. Such a cool, unique place to walk around and explore. Chloe had been here once before, and she always wanted to come back. I'm so glad that she wanted to share this experience with us because it was just amazing overall. And pairing this with doing Virginia City and Nevada City earlier in the day, and just having the entire ghost town experience was a really cool one-day itinerary for our out west American road trip. A very short distance from the town is the Vigilante Campground, where we spent the night along the Grasshopper Creek. It was absolutely beautiful. We broke down our camp rather quickly in the morning and had ourselves a hot, fast oatmeal breakfast before skipping town and kind of slowly weaving our way through this cattle traffic jam here, off to our next great destination on this amazing American road trip, which was going to be the magnificent, beautiful Yellowstone National Park for a 2-night stay. We were so excited, we could barely wait.